This is Real News Media TV, coverage you can trust. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates. Good afternoon, my Real News Media TV family. Welcome back to the channel for another news update for January 25, 2023. And in the news this afternoon, attorneys says it will take time before defrauded SSL investors recover funds. Former trustee in bankruptcy and attorney at law Hugh Wildman is cautioning investors in Stocks and Securities Limited that it will take some time for them to recover their funds invested in the firm. Stocks and Securities Limited was placed under the temporary management of the Financial Services Commission last week after a massive fraud scheme was uncovered at the investment firm. Since then, nervous investors have been seeking to remove their funds from the company. But speaking with the news on Tuesday, Mr. Wildman warned that the authorities might be forced to call in the trustee in bankruptcy if the investigations reveal that SSL does not have enough money to pay back investors.
If there is not enough money to satisfy the depositors, okay, it would mean that the institution is now insolvent. So what would have to happen is that the trustee in bankruptcy may have to come in, take charge of the institution, and they now in turn would have to gather in all the assets, people who owe the bank, and if there is enough money to make a payment, they would have to go to the Supreme Court and ask a judge to sanction a payment to persons who have lost money in the institution. Once the trustee in bankruptcy is in charge, then it precludes any lawsuit from being filed against the institution. That's the purpose of it. But it could not avail the FSC. That's a different situation there. But the bank itself or the SSL may be able to withstand a lawsuit if it is brought under the office of the trustee in bankruptcy. But in terms of the other entities like the FSC now that fail to supervise, they could be liable for a civil suit. The negligence. All the person who lost money could sue the FSC. If they have evidence that the institution was in problem and the FSC did not take steps to deal with that, then the FSC would have breached its duty of care to the depositors.
FID and the fraud squad to review statements collected in SSL case. The news was informed that senior investigators attached to the Financial Investigation Division and the Fraud Squad are scheduled to meet in the coming days to review statements collected from investors in Stocks and Securities Limited and to plan the way forward. The review follows Monday's announcement by Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark that the government has engaged the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation to assist the local police in the massive fraud probe. The investigators have collected a number of statements from investors who have been fleeced of hundreds of millions of dollars in an alleged fraud scheme at the financial institution. The news was informed that at least one of the managers of the company, owned by Olympian Usain Bolt, has given a statement to investigators. The Olympian, through his attorneys, has declared that almost Jamaican $2 billion has been removed from the company's accounts at SSL without his consent. Investigators raided the residence of Jean Panton, the former SSL manager, at the center of the probe. The cops seized the documents and electronic devices during the raid, but have not said when Ms. Panton will be called in for questioning. Low nurse-to-baby ratio contributed to bacterial outbreak at the VGH, says PAHO. The Pan American Health Organization has confirmed that low staff-to-patient ratios and non-compliance with some infection prevention and control protocols were major contributing factors in the bacterial outbreak that resulted in the death of a dozen newborns at Victoria Jubilee Hospital last year. The neonates died over the period July to October last year. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton shared the findings from the PAHO report on special care nurseries at the Victoria Jubilee Hospital, Bustamante Hospital for Children, and the Spanish Town Hospital during a media briefing on Tuesday. Apart from the outbreak at Victoria Jubilee Hospital, the PAHO report indicated that there were no cases of the deadly infection at other hospitals.
We certainly regret that the circumstances were created which created these neonates, these babies, from dying, and we have to learn the lessons from these circumstances to avoid a reoccurrence of them. But I do believe that the team, under the circumstances, did well to address the situation. You may ask if we're magicians, because when we had the problem, we said a big part of the challenge was not having the staff. Well, we have attempted to make adjustments where we can, moving around people from one place to the next. It, in some instances, may mean even depriving other parts of the institution with the ideal numbers, because there is a genuine staff shortage for all sorts of reasons.
Former MP Ian Hales and the wife referred to police over Hanover building breaches. Former Member of Parliament for Hanover Western Ian Hales and his wife Charlotte Alexander Hales has been referred to the Commissioner of Police by the former Office of the Contractor General for further investigations. Specifically, the OCG has asked the Commissioner to determine whether Hales and his wife committed forgery in relation to buildings that were constructed in Hanover without the approval of the Hanover Parish Council, and whether Hales, the former People's National Party MP, breached the Corruption Prevention Act. This is in relation to allegations that Hales pressured the then Mayor of Lucy, Shernette Horton, in his bid to get her to approve documents for his illegal constructions. The long-awaited report of the OCG, which has long since been subsumed by the Integrity Commission, was tabled in the Parliament on Tuesday. The contents within its 232 pages are as explosive as they are damning. The special report, which looked into allegations of conflict of interest, irregularity, and/or impropriety in relation to the construction of buildings by Hales, a former Minister of State in the Ministry of Water, Land, Environment and Climate Change, commenced on April 24, 2015. Among the allegations that sparked the investigation are that family members of Hales, namely his wife and her daughter, Keisha Gail Alexander, and his mother, Pauline Gray, operate the company Just One Service, which undertook the development of a plaza in Orange Bay, Hanover, without approval. The allegation further stated that Hales and his family members constructed a plaza at Orange Bay Square in Hanover with documents submitted to the Hanover Parish Council for another place, which is Mount Pleasant in Santoy. The former mayor alleged that sometime between January or February of 2014, Hales called me on the office phone at my office at the Hanover Parish Council and said he had some documents at the Hanover Parish Council and he wanted me to grant him a favor. He asked me to sign and stamp the documents. I asked what documents they were, and he informed me that they were the documents for his land and plaza in Hanover. Mr. Michael Grant, the spouse of Miss Horton, alleged that on or about January 2014, Hales telephoned him and stated that he had requested that Miss Horton sign certain documents, which she refused to sign, and that she cannot stay there as a mayor because she is not working with me. Hales alleged Judy Mackenzie Lawrence, the former secretary manager, HPC, promised to grant any request for approval made by him on the premise that he arranges for her to be transferred from the HPC to a council closer to home. Charlotte Alexander alleged that sometime in June of 2013, Mackenzie Lawrence advised her by way of telephone conversation that the building applications for Cousins Cove were approved and that she just needed to sign off on the paperwork. Mackenzie Lawrence alleged that subsequent to serving the stop notice on Cousins Cove, Hales called her on her office telephone and stated that she was targeting him. Based upon the sworn responses provided to OCG, as well as the documentary evidence submitted during the course of its hearings, the OCG arrived at several conclusions, including the following. The developers of the Just One Plaza initially applied to the HPC for the construction of 9 shops and a supermarket. A total of 20 shops and a supermarket were constructed. The Just One Plaza was constructed in the absence of a planning and a building permit from the HPC and in wanton disregard for the cease work, stop and enforcement notices which were served thereupon. The OCG noted that the proprietors of the Just One Plaza breached A Section 3 of the Parish Council Act and the Bylaws 1952 by undertaking construction of the plaza without the approval of the HPC, and B Section 24(3) of the Town and the Planning Act by continuing the construction of the plaza to the point of completion subsequent to the enforcement notice being served. Notwithstanding the option, which is available to the HPC to issue an as-built permit, the OCG concluded that the HPC should also consider the enforcement of the punitive sanctions which were prescribed under Section 4 of the Parish Council Building Act and the Sections 23 and 24(3) of the Town and the Country Planning Act against the developers and/or owners of the Just One Plaza. The OCG also found that given the time which has elapsed and the disregard of the referenced notices which were served in respect of the Just One Plaza, the responsible and accountable officers of the HPC failed to enforce any sanctions against the developers of the Just One Plaza. The OCG also considers this failure on part of the responsible and accountable officers of the HPC to be tantamount to a dereliction of duties. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates.